At the beginning of previous seasons, we've been able to give a proper introduction to our new members to our audiences during opening weekends. We give them a standing recognition at the first concert, printed bios in the first program book. Often we have several new members to welcome. However, this season, we have just one. With our concert season being pushed back due to coronavirus, I still wanted to give this musician the requisite welcome to the Kansas City Symphony. You may have seen him practicing on street corners downtown, or saying a quick hello on Facebook. Or you may have heard him speak with music director Michael Stern on our Music for Our Time podcast, and we very much look forward to his first notes on the Hellsberg Hall stage. In this episode of Meet a Musician, I speak with the newest member of the Kansas City Symphony, principal percussionist, Josh Jones.
Hi, I'm Josh. Good to be here.
Well, Josh, thanks for joining us on this. Just tell us a little bit about what your childhood was like and how you got started in music, and specifically as a percussionist.
Well, I've always been hitting things when I was a kid. I started basically when I was 2, and then my grandparents noticed that I was hitting everything in sight. So my grandpa decided to get me a drum set for my birthday. So when I was 3, got my first drum set, and I completely tore it to shreds. I was just like hitting it all the time. That's how I started. I played drum set for church up until about 4th grade. And then in 4th grade, I joined the percussion scholarship program of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And that's where I learned orchestral percussion officially. Patricia Dash started it. She was in the Chicago Symphony, and her husband, Douglas Waddell, in the Lyric Opera. And they both decided, hey, there's not a lot of opportunities for inner city children in regards to orchestral music. So what if we created a program specific to percussion that people could join on a scholarship basis? So yeah, they provided free lessons every Saturday for about 45 minutes. They gave us all a drum pad to start, drumsticks, music, and then a snare drum, and then a marimba. So if you can imagine about 25 kids all having a marimba at home, basically, for free. We didn't have to rent it or anything. It was an incredible opportunity, and I definitely would not be here without that program.
Well, prior to you joining us here in Kansas City, I know you held some important fellowship positions with the Detroit and the Pittsburgh Symphonies. Tell us about your experiences in those positions and how they helped shape you as a musician as well.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate to have participated in both, especially when I started both of those programs. With Detroit, I was fresh out of college, so I was very green, and also had a lot of personal issues that I had to figure out as a musician and as a Black man. So being in the Detroit Symphony, they were really keen on making me feel comfortable being on stage, number one, and then also comfortable just working as a colleague, not simply as the fellow or the intern, but as a colleague in the orchestra. But they stayed really patient and really helped me through a lot of issues back then. So I really appreciate them all. And then going into the Pittsburgh Symphony, that was when I actually just finally won my first job. And so I couldn't have the normal experience as I had with the Detroit Symphony, just, taking lessons and having different other experiences with them, performing with the symphony as often as I could. So they were really keen on making sure I was prepared for the job. So I was speaking with the principal about the tasks that a principal percussionist is supposed to do, how to do them properly, different ways to do the job. If this doesn't work, if this is how you can do it. If you can't find this instrument, here are some substitutions. And alongside that, the inner workings of the orchestra, how to join committees, when to go to meetings, what meetings to not go to, dealing with politics in the orchestra, when to engage, when not to engage. how to speak to donors, when to speak to donors, how to navigate the ins and outs, just how to navigate the ins and outs of the job that they don't teach you in school. So both went hand in hand in my successes after those programs.
We obviously didn't realize it at the time, but your audition here in Kansas City concluded just one day before our season did back in March. Percussion auditions are complicated enough, but how did the pending COVID closures add yet another wrinkle to an already complicated audition process for you?
Let's just say I'm used to complicated audition experiences. I've never really had a comfortable audition experience. I've either gone to auditions with lack of sleep, lack of nourishment of some sort, having to eat junk food all the time, traveling in very weird predicaments, whether it be riding on a Greyhound overnight and then having to stay at the Greyhound station at 4:30 a.m. right before your audition. That's at 10. Yeah, I've had some really trying audition experiences. So this was actually one of the smoothest ones I've ever taken. I was just kind of ignoring the impending pandemic issues that would come up. I've trained myself well to be able to focus on the task at hand and not let life kind of cloud my judgment or impede my musicality. So it's always, I want to play beautiful music for people, and that's all that matters. Whatever happens, happens. But on the other hand, I'm also like, I really hope I win. So it's definitely a balance. Off stage, I'm like, I really hope I win. I hope everything goes well. But on stage, let's play some music.
Well, I know you just got here to town just a few weeks ago, so unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity really to get to know you yet. I know you're incredibly focused and driven. I know you're an amazing percussionist and musician. Outside of music, what are some things that interest you?
I'm actually trying to learn that right now. I've been so focused on music for basically all of my life. It's hard to figure out what else I like other than music. So I've discovered I love taking pictures. I've invested in some camera lenses, and I love taking photos around town or just of nature in general. And I really love anime. I wish I had the funds to really kind of fund that because I love mangas and I love reading mangas, but I also have to, buy drumsticks. So they're probably not equal in price. But I do enjoy watching anime shows and things of that nature all the time. My favorite one is Cowboy Bebop. That's like the best anime. And then the second, because technically it's not an anime, is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Love that show. It's amazing.
Here we go with a few rapid fire questions for you. Josh, what's your favorite movie?
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Coffee, tea, water, or beer?
Tea.
What's your favorite game?
Ooh, favorite game. Sonic Riders from PS2, that version.
Do you collect anything?
Yeah, like Precious Gems.
Which staple of the orchestra repertoire is currently percussionless, but you think deserves a rewrite with the added percussion?
Mozart Violin Concerto number 5. I always thought it was awkward because when I first played it, the strings did the percussioning, I guess. And I thought it was weird because it could have used either a bass drum snare drum or bass drum cymbals, like small pair of cymbals.
Well, Josh, I know you wrote a method book called Spatial Studies for Hitting Things. What did you find missing from other method books that made you feel like you had something new to bring into that world?
I was very jealous of pianists and violinists, or any string player basically, having so much detail into the physical technique of their hands, also in textbooks or method books. And generally I've seen in percussion method books is you hold the drumstick and that's it. It's like, you just hold it this way, and they show a picture of how you hold it. And you either see stuff like this in the older textbooks or some version of this. You always see a picture. And the explanation is very general and not very specific to, like, this is what your fingers do or how you should feel around the stick, that kind of stuff. I just didn't think it was specific enough. I was hoping to find a way of explaining technique in a way that would help individuals find their own way in a very relaxed and open exploration kind of way. And then everybody's technique is going to be slightly different because everybody's body is slightly different or even drastically different. So you go through all these very relaxed motions and you figure out what your body naturally does, and then you choreograph it with the exercises in the book. So it's very like kind of no-brainer stuff, but then I start getting into things like, what happens when you throw bass on your first finger? You get a brighter sound. Didn't know you can get brighter sounds out of a snare drum, like, or darker sounds out of a snare drum. So it kind of goes into those types of ideas and musical variables and sound variables that you can use in music, from sound choices to different textures you can create with weight distribution and what muscles you use and what muscle groups. It's really detailed.
Well, earlier, Josh, you spoke of some of the additional tasks of being a percussionist. Let's talk about some of those tasks that other sections don't necessarily have to deal with, like how to best set up the instruments on stage, or how and to whom to assign the right parts, checking your inventory to make sure we have the right instruments even to begin with. Just talk to us a little bit about some of those other duties.
This is one of the things Pittsburgh really trained me well at. And the methods that they use for assigning parts, especially, it's usually goes to what are the musician's strengths, or what do people like really sound great on. Like, even if someone might not be the best at bass drum, but they have the best bass drum sound, I'll consider that. I'm usually sound driven more than I am who's the best at this. And then the other thing would be in relation to where to put things and where to place people. Usually in pieces, we have a lot of duets, or we play with a lot of different instruments and instrumentalists. So I'll usually consider, okay, if I'm playing snare drum, who can hear me, and do I need to move so they can either see or hear me? Sight lines are a big issue sometimes with being in the back. So if I need to see the concert master for certain things, I might need to either scoot over or ask someone if they could move over, depending on the setup. So there are certain pieces where if it's in the standard repertoire, there's a setup that just works. Carnival Overture, tambourine has to be in the front. like you can't, even if you don't have space, you make space to make sure it's seen. Yeah, and then the other cool thing that the principal percussionist of the Pittsburgh Symphony told me to do was get these textbooks for your section. So for assigning parts, we have the Symphonic Repertoire by Rainer Carroll. This is pretty good. This is huge. So this is a really great guide for all principal percussionists. Everybody should have this book if they're a principal percussionist. And then I've often found in percussion scores especially, there's a lot of different instruments that aren't, let's say, in our vocabulary. Like let's take the word harmonica. The first thing people think about is, the harmonica. But according to the definitions of percussion instruments, harmonica is a glass instrument. Any questions I have about terminology would be in this dictionary.
Well, since you're new here and moved during a pandemic, I'm going to skip my usual, what's your favorite Kansas City barbecue restaurant? So instead, I'm going to ask another food-related question. 2 composers of your choice are coming over to dinner at your place. Who are you inviting, and what are you cooking for them?
Okay, 2 composers that I would invite to dinner. Number 1 would be Joel Thompson, and number 2 would be Chevalier de Saint-Georges. I'm probably going to cook a steak, medium rare, um, fingerling potatoes, roasted in the oven with probably either rosemary or thyme, definitely pepper and salt, um, and a vegetable of some sort, or a salad. Probably a salad because everything else is hot.
Well, it has really been awesome to talk with you, Josh, and get to know you a little bit better. I'm really sad that we're not interacting backstage right now. At the end of last season, I was so sad for our first year members last year, Stephen, Catherine, David, Silvio, Max, and Kayla. Now I get to add how truly sorry I am for you not to get to experience our fabulous audience and wonderful hall, at least for a little bit longer. We'll get there in time. And I know you'll be ready. I know we'll be ready when that time does come, and everyone's looking forward to it. And like I said, I look forward to working with you backstage.
Yeah, I can't wait to get on stage and perform again. I miss being in front of an audience, and not just in front, but interacting with the audience before and after concerts. That's one of my favorite things to do at work. So I'm really excited to do that again.